Welcome to True Crime Fusion, where we delve into the most mysterious and shocking crimes that leave communities reeling. Today's story takes us to Maple Hollow, a picturesque southern town known for its charming streets and tight-knit community. But behind its idyllic facade lies a tale of forbidden desire, betrayal, and a chilling murder that shocked the nation. At the center of the story is Sheriff Brad Mathers, a 52-year-old law enforcement veteran revered by Maple Hollow's residents. With his salt and pepper hair and authoritative demeanor, Brad was a fixture in the town. He had served as sheriff for nearly 2 decades, earning the respect of his peers and the trust of his constituents. Brad was married to Donna, a local historian known for her eloquent speeches and civic pride. Together, they seemed like the picture-perfect couple, living in a stately brick house adorned with American flags and manicured hedges. Maple Hollow's residents often saw Brad and Donna at town parades, charity events, and church services, embodying the essence of small-town decency. However, Brad harbored a secret that threatened to unravel his carefully constructed life. Over the past year, Brad had been engaged in an illicit affair with Tiana Green, an 18-year-old black girl who worked part-time at the local diner while attending Maple Hollow Community College. Tiana was known for her radiant smile and ambition. She dreamed of becoming a nurse and worked tirelessly to save for tuition. Despite her challenging circumstances, she was a beacon of positivity in the town. But her life took a complicated turn when she met Sheriff Mathers. Their relationship began innocently enough. Brad often stopped by the diner for coffee during his rounds. Tiana, eager to make a good impression, always greeted him warmly. Over time, their exchanges grew more personal. Brad offered to mentor her, helping her navigate financial aid and scholarship applications. But what began as mentorship quickly spiraled into something darker. Brad used his position of power and charisma to manipulate Tiana, drawing her into a relationship she couldn't easily escape. The sheriff's advances, cloaked in promises of support and admiration, left Tiana feeling flattered yet conflicted. She knew their relationship was wrong, illegal even, but Brad's influence and her own vulnerability trapped her in a web of secrecy. By May 2023, the affair had become an open secret among a few observant townsfolk. Gossip swirled, but no one dared confront the sheriff directly. Donna, though fiercely protective of her marriage's image, began noticing Brad's absences and whispered exchanges on his phone. Her suspicions grew, but she lacked concrete evidence to confront him. The situation took a shocking turn in early June when Tiana discovered she was pregnant. At just 18, the news left her terrified. Brad's initial reaction was anger, but he quickly shifted to damage control. He promised to support her and the child, but his tone carried a chilling edge. "You can't tell anyone, Tiana," Brad warned one night as they met in his patrol car on the outskirts of town. "If this gets out, it'll ruin everything, for me and for you." Tiana felt trapped. Her dreams of becoming a nurse seemed to slip further away with every passing day. Meanwhile, Brad became increasingly paranoid, fearing exposure that could destroy his career and marriage. On the night of July 4th, Maple Hollow held its annual Independence Day celebration, complete with fireworks and a community cookout. Brad was seen mingling with townsfolk, playing the role of the devoted sheriff. Tiana, meanwhile, stayed home, overwhelmed by anxiety about her future. The next morning, chaos erupted in Maple Hollow. Tiana's lifeless body was discovered in a wooded area just outside of town. Her throat had been slashed, and bruises on her wrists suggested a violent struggle. The town awoke to a nightmare, and whispers about the sheriff's connection to the young woman began to grow louder. Little did anyone know, the investigation into Tiana's murder would reveal a web of secrets that would shock even the most seasoned detectives. The discovery of Tiana Green's body rocked Maple Hollow to its core. Residents who once prided themselves on their tight-knit, peaceful community were now faced with the grim reality that one of their own had been brutally murdered. By mid-morning on July 5th, the woods where Tiana's body had been found were sealed off with yellow crime scene tape. Forensic technicians meticulously examined every inch of the site, while local reporters scrambled to cover the shocking case. Noticeably absent from the scene was Sheriff Brad Mathers, the town's chief law enforcement officer. Instead, the investigation was led by Detective Maria Alvarez, a sharp, no-nonsense investigator who had relocated from the city for a quieter life, one that seemed far away now. Maria had heard the whispers around town about the sheriff's supposed indiscretions, but she knew better than to act on gossip. For now, she focused on the facts. Tiana's death was no ordinary murder. The brutality of the crime suggested deep personal anger, and the absence of robbery or sexual assault ruled out a random attack. As Maria combed through the crime scene with her team, she kept one question at the forefront of her mind. Who would want to harm an 18-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her? Tiana's phone, retrieved from her backpack found near the scene, quickly became a key piece of evidence. Although the screen was cracked, the phone itself was still functional. The contents revealed troubling insights. Sheriff Mather's number appeared frequently in her call logs, often during late-night hours, but it was the unsent messages in Tiana's drafts folder that stopped Maria in her tracks. "You promised me you'd help. I can't keep doing this. If you don't tell her, I will." The desperation in Tiana's words was palpable, and they hinted at escalating tension between her and Brad. The detective's suspicions began to crystallize. When Maria called Brad in for questioning, his demeanor was calm but guarded. Seated across from her in the small interrogation room, he carried himself with the authority of a man who had spent decades in law enforcement. "I was devastated to hear about Tiana," he began, his tone measured and deliberate. "She was a sweet girl. I can't imagine who would do such a thing." Maria, unflinching, leaned forward. "You and Tiana seemed close. The call logs suggest frequent contact. Can you explain the nature of your relationship?" Brad's expression didn't falter. "I was mentoring her," he replied. "She needed guidance, and I saw potential in her. Maybe I got too involved, but it was nothing inappropriate." Maria didn't miss the slight tension in his jaw as he spoke. She decided to press further. "Did you know she was pregnant?" Brad's composure cracked ever so slightly. His eyes widened before narrowing again, his voice tight. "Pregnant? No, that's horrible. I had no idea." It wasn't the reaction Maria expected from a man claiming innocence, but before she could dig deeper, Brad requested a lawyer, effectively shutting down the interrogation. The investigation, however, was far from over. Forensic evidence began to pile up. Fibers from the sheriff's patrol car matched those found on Tiana's clothing, and surveillance footage from a gas station showed Brad's vehicle heading toward the wooded area around midnight on July 4th. A witness, a retired veteran walking his dog late that night, reported seeing a patrol car parked on the side of the road near the woods and hearing what sounded like raised voices in the distance. When Maria obtained a search warrant for Brad's home, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Hidden in a locked drawer in Brad's study was Tiana's diary. Her entries painted a haunting picture of their relationship, her fear of Brad's temper, his growing hostility after learning about her pregnancy, and his repeated promises to fix things. One entry stood out in particular. "He's scared of losing everything, but I'm scared of him. He says he'll fix this, but I don't know what that means." The most damning discovery came from Brad's garage. Inside his toolbox was a blood-stained pocket knife. Testing confirmed the blood was Tiana's. Maria wasted no time. On July 8th, just hours after Brad resigned as sheriff in a teary press conference, officers arrived at his home with an arrest warrant. The sight of Brad being handcuffed on his own front porch was surreal for the residents of Maple Hollow. Donna stood in the doorway, silent, her face a blank mask as her husband was led to the waiting patrol car. As Brad was driven to the station, the gravity of his fall from grace began to sink in. The town's beloved sheriff was now the prime suspect in the murder of a young woman, and Maple Hollow would never be the same. Sheriff Bradley Mathers sat in the dimly lit interrogation room, his once pristine uniform now replaced with a dull orange of a jail jumpsuit. Across from him, Detective Maria Alvarez laid out the evidence in calm, deliberate detail. She spared no words as she described the fibers found in his patrol car, the blood on the pocket knife, and the entries in Tiana's diary. "You were in those woods that night, Brad," Maria said, her voice steady but firm. "We have the evidence. It's time to tell the truth." Brad sat motionless for a moment, his shoulders hunched and his face shadowed by the overhead light. For the first time since his arrest, the mask of authority and control slipped. He looked older, his once confident demeanor reduced to a hollow shell. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," he muttered, his voice barely audible. Maria leaned in. "Go that far? What happened, Brad?" Brad exhaled deeply, his breath shaky. "She wanted to keep the baby," he began. "She said she was going to tell Donna. I couldn't let that happen. It would have destroyed everything. My marriage, my career, my life. I needed to make her understand." His words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. Maria stayed silent, letting the weight of his confession settle before urging him to continue. "We met at the diner parking lot," Brad said, his voice cracking. "It was after the fireworks. I told Donna I had some work to finish. Tiana got into my car, and we drove to the edge of town. She was crying, saying she couldn't do this alone, that I had to step up. I tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't stop." His hands trembled as he recounted the night. "When we got to the woods, she got out of the car, said she was going to walk into town and tell everyone. I panicked. I grabbed her arm and begged her to stop, but she just kept yelling. I didn't mean to hurt her, but I couldn't think straight." Maria's eyes remained locked on him, her expression unreadable. "What happened next, Brad?" Brad swallowed hard. I grabbed the knife from the glove box. I didn't plan it. It just happened. She fought back, scratching me, screaming, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. And then, it was over. The room fell silent. Brad's breathing was uneven, his head bowed in shame. Maria, keeping her emotions in check, rose from her seat. "Thank you for your confession, Brad," she said. "This is the right thing to do. For Tiana, for her family, and for this community." As she stepped out of the room, the weight of the case began to lift, but the damage left in its wake was undeniable. Word of Brad's confession spread quickly through Maple Hollow. The once revered sheriff was now a pariah, his fall from grace shaking the town to its core. Donna Mathers filed for divorce the same day, her carefully constructed life shattered beyond repair. Tiana's family, heartbroken and devastated, held a vigil in her memory, attended by hundreds of mourners who left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes at the site where her body was found. For Maria, the case was far from over. As she reviewed Brad's confession, something didn't sit right. His description of the events was disturbingly detailed, yet certain elements didn't match the forensic evidence. The scratches Brad claimed to have suffered from Tiana weren't present during his arrest. Furthermore, the timeline he provided didn't align with the gas station surveillance footage. Maria's instincts told her there was more to the story, but she couldn't ignore the mountain of evidence pointing to Brad's guilt. With his confession in hand, the prosecution prepared its case. The trial was set to begin in September, promising to be one of the most high-profile legal battles Maple Hollow had ever seen. In the weeks leading up to the trial, Maria continued digging. She revisited the crime scene, combing through every detail with a fresh perspective. Her persistence paid off when she discovered something the initial sweep had missed: a broken pendant buried under a patch of dirt near where Tiana's body had been found. The pendant, engraved with the initials DM, was a piece of jewelry Maria recognized. It belonged to Donna Mathers. Brad's confession had seemed airtight, but this discovery raised a chilling possibility. Had Donna been involved in Tiana's murder? Maria knew she needed to tread carefully. Donna's public silence after Brad's arrest had been interpreted as grief, but now Maria wondered if it masked something far darker. She obtained a warrant to search Donna's belongings, focusing on any connections to Tiana or the crime scene. In Donna's closet, Maria found a shoebox tucked beneath stacks of neatly folded sweaters. Inside were items that shattered any illusions of Donna's innocence. Among them was a pair of gloves stained with what appeared to be blood, a handwritten letter from Tiana pleading with Donna to let Brad do the right thing, and receipts placing Donna at the gas station near the woods on the night of the murder. Maria confronted Donna at her home. Donna, visibly shaken, didn't resist as she was escorted to the station. In the interrogation room, she maintained her composure until Maria laid the evidence on the table. "You knew about the affair, didn't you?" Maria asked, her voice calm but firm. Donna's eyes filled with tears. "I found out months ago," she admitted. "At first, I wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. But when I found out about the baby," she paused, her voice trembling. "She was going to ruin everything. My marriage, my reputation, everything Brad and I built together. I couldn't let that happen." Her tone shifted, growing colder. "I followed them that night. I saw them arguing, and when Brad couldn't handle it, I stepped in. I took the knife. I did what had to be done." The weight of Donna's words left Maria momentarily stunned. "Brad took the blame to protect you," Maria said, piecing it together. Donna's lips curled into a bitter smile. "He's always been weak when it matters. I knew he wouldn't let me take the fall." With Donna's confession, the case took a dramatic turn. Brad, now seen as a complicit but unwilling participant, faced charges for obstruction and evidence tampering, while Donna was charged with first-degree murder. The town of Maple Hollow reeled from the revelation, struggling to reconcile the horrifying truth with the image of a woman they had admired for years. And in the end, both Brad and Donna were sentenced to decades behind bars. Maria, though relieved to have uncovered the full truth, felt no sense of triumph. Tiana's life had been cut short, and the justice system could only offer partial closure to her grieving family.